talking about the rate of change of something, they're talking about the slope, so you just need to type in the slope if they ask for rate of change. There may be problems where they ask you for the same answer more than once, just to make sure you know that there's more than one way to talk about it. So that's not a trick, it's just part of the question. Okay, interpreting the units for X and Y is one thing we want to talk about. So have any of you guys run into those questions where it talks about units? Like Y is dollars and X is years.
Yeah.
Okay? Remember that X is independent. You choose X, and Y is dependent. I always put too many syllables in there. I get carried away when I Y is dependent on X.
Can you give an example of this?
So, like if X is the year, and Y is your dollars in profit, okay? Then to interpret the slope, so let's say our slope is -30. Okay, what does this mean? Your slope is -30. What would I say is falling? Is the year falling? Profit is falling. Profit falls by how much?
30 a year.
$30 every year. Okay, so the year is independent, and the profit is dependent on that. The profit is falling $30 depending on what year it is. Every year.
Bless you.
Okay? So the way that they would say this in my math lab is they would say the profit decreases $30 per year. So per year means every year your profit's falling $30. Oh yeah.
Bless you.
Okay? Alright, does that make sense? So you're always looking at your X value, and then the change in Y, which is your slope, depends on the X value. Okay? So when I say X is independent and Y is dependent, then the change in Y, not what I wanted to do. Change in Y depends on X as well. Okay, so your change in your profit or your cost or whatever depends on the X value, which could be the year, could be the number of units. Alright, let's look at an example of the homework. An example of it. Okay, let's look at number 16. 2t plus 74. That's a linear function because your x is like t and your y is like a of t. Okay, t is the year, y is the life expectancy. Okay, what's the slope of this function? 0.2, right? Your t is like x, so remember your slope is always the number in front of the variable. So instead of 0.2x, it's 0.2t. Either way, my slope is 0.2. Okay, now here's where we get a little confused, is when we have these drop-down boxes and they talk about the unit. So my rate of change is the same as the slope, 0.2. Now let's try to interpret this before I even look at the choices here. Okay? My t is my year, and y is the life expectancy. So what would I expect the life expectancy to do based on the year?
They keep increasing?
It would keep increasing, right? Like as the years go by, your life expectancy would get longer because of what? Oh, you're not talking to me? Okay. Carry on. Alright, so I would expect the life expectancy to increase. Guys, if you're not going to pay attention to me, just go to the library and do whatever. Okay? And that applies to all of you. Like, I try to do stuff up here, and if you guys just want to do whatever, then, don't distract everybody else. Okay, so life expectancy should increase based on the year. If it's increasing at a rate of 0.2, then I would expect to add 0.2 every year. Okay? So I want my life expectancy to go up 0.2 every year. Okay? So which one am I going to choose here?
Second one.
The second one, years of age.
So it's going to go up 0.2 years of age per year after 1955.
Yes. I'm going to add 0.2 years of age. Means I'm going to add that to my life expectancy every year, per year, after 1955.
Makes sense now.
Makes sense now, yes. That's why I'm going over this one. Yeah. So you really these ones with the units mess everybody up. It's always if you're talking about years, generally it's always going to say per year, because year is always independent. Okay? Because the years always have to be chosen. Years can't depend on anything else. Now, Brandon, do you have a question right there?
I was just trying to manipulate the software so I could catch up with you.
What if you got it right, but it says it's wrong?
Then it's actually wrong.
Now,
Oh, I see what I did. I put a 0.
the way that we are determining that this is linear is because it applies to that y equals mx plus b, because
Yes,
it's set
exactly.
up in that
It's
form.
linear because it's in mx plus b form. Exactly.
If it had a fraction or a exponent in there, it would not be linear.
Yeah, if it had like x squared or something, or square root of x, or anything other than mx plus b, it's not linear. Okay, so there's a few questions where they just talk about the slope, they talk about the rate of change. When they're talking about cost and revenue, sometimes they use the word marginal. So the other thing you want to have in your notes to remember is that marginal anything, cost, profit, revenue, is the slope.
Okay.
Okay, so marginal cost, profit, revenue, whatever, is also the slope. So what that means is that when they're talking about marginal, say it's marginal cost, they're talking about the slope of the cost. So this means how much would the cost or the profit or the revenue change for every item you produce. marginal cost was $30, then every item individually cost me $30 to produce. Okay, so if I increase my number of items by 1, my cost would go up $30. Okay, so when they're talking about marginal whatever, cost, profit, revenue, they are talking about the slope. They're talking about the rate of change of your cost, your profit, your revenue. Okay, now some of these problems are kind of repetitive. Here's one that says rate of change. I don't know if it was marginal.
You gotta go up further.
If you say y equals ax plus b, is that the same as mx plus b?
Yeah, I don't
on
know
here?
why they would say AX. Usually MX is pretty
Okay,
standard.
'cause that's
yeah,
what
if
was
they say AX plus B, that means the same
throwing me
thing.
off. Okay.
Okay, so like on number 17, when they ask me for the slope, it's just the number in front of your variable. So 1.4. And then when they ask for the rate of change, they mean the slope again. So you may see problems that say $1 million per year. Okay, sometimes people get thrown off if like it asks for the same answer more than once. They'll say, well, I thought that would be wrong because I already answered with that. No, there's problems on this homework where it has the same answer like 3 or 4 times sometimes. So that's
18's more.
22 is.
22.
It threw me off because it was the same answer.
Where's 22?
It just kind of like reworded it.
Yeah, the slope, because A and B, like A asks for the slope and B asks for the marginal revenue,
Right.
those mean the same thing, so it's going to ask for the
Mhm.
same thing. Also, where's the question where it asks for the 0 and the x-intercept?
It's right there.
No.
Oh.
No,
It's not right here. Oh, 24.
right, yeah.
24 is another one where it's going to have the same answer, because remember I said the x-intercept and the 0 are the same question. Okay, f of x equals 0 means y equals 0. So if you set y equals 0, you're also talking about the x-intercept. Okay, now I'll give you guys some time to work on these. 25 is another one, it's going to have the same answers. But the last thing I want to talk about, if you guys could skip to number 26, I want to talk about some of these equations here with the word problems and the last few problems. So I'll give you guys some time to work on the questions about slope. A lot of those questions are just taking the slope out of the equation, so they're not really that involved. Yes, Ashley?
Now, will it ever ask you, will it tell you if it wants you to set it up as an ordered pair when it asks, like, for the x-intercept? Otherwise, you just put in,
Yes.
just say,
Yeah,
for instance,
it'll always say
10.
type an ordered pair. Whenever it wants an ordered pair, it'll always say type an ordered pair.
Otherwise, you just want to type
Yes.
Another thing you could do
wherever
is,
it crosses.
another thing you could do is you can go view an example, see what answer they put in, and do
That's
an
true.
example.
That's another, guys, you got to keep that in mind, is view an example and look at how they say the answer. Now, the last few problems are where you're talking about an equation, and you're trying to either compute the y value for a given x value, or you're trying to figure out where would the y value equal some desired number.
You gotta
Okay.
find the inverse of this equation.
No, you don't want to find the inverse.
No?
That's too much work.
Too much work.
That would technically work, but yes, that's too much work. Basically on these word problems, you're either going to plug in an x value or you're going to plug in a y value. And you just need to figure out which one. Okay? So figure out, are they giving you a y value, are they giving you an x value? Which one do I need to plug in for? Okay? Now 26 is an extra tricky problem, so let's look at 26. It says a building worth $825,000 is depreciated for tax purposes. Do you guys know what that means?
So they don't have to pay as much.
Yeah, it means that they lower the value of the building that they can keep the tax on. So like when they say your car depreciates, they just mean it's not worth as much anymore. car is depreciated, or building is depreciated by its owner using straight line depreciation. That just means they subtract a fixed amount every year. That's accounting 1, if anyone's interested. The value of the building, Y. So they're telling me here that the value is Y. After X months. So the value is Y after X months. So X is the number of months of use. Is given by Y equals 825,000 minus 2,300 X dollars. After how many years will the value of the building equal to 659,400?
Now, since it says years, I'm willing to bet it's going to be in increments of 12.
Yes. And that's where they're going to trick it. Now, he's already figured out the trick, which is that they're mixing months and years. So we do need to worry about that. But first, let's figure out how to find the answer. Okay, now how many of you guys are guessing checkers? Do you guess and check things? Okay, so guess and check. If you're going to guess and check, what would you guys do?
I would try to.
You'd start plugging in X values?
Yeah.
I would graph it and go from there.
You want to graph it?
I like that.
That's what I did.
We can do that. Now, let me say something here. The graph is going to be real messed up here because the number is 825,000.
You have to change the view.
So it's going to, actually, I don't even know if it'll go that high.
I didn't even
Oh yeah, it will.
I didn't even worry about the graph.
You
like,
can
I
put-
just
Using the
used,
table?
Yeah, I just used the table.
Using the table, okay. So yeah, you could graph it and try to use the table. But what am I looking for here? I'm looking for my Y value to be this.
Wouldn't you just plug that number into the wall?
Yes, that's what I would do. Now, if you're guessing and checking, then some people would just plug in X values until you get the right Y value. And theoretically, that's okay. To me, that's too much work. Okay? Because what we want to do is set Y equal to that number. So I'm going to plug that in for Y into my equation. Okay, and then instead of trying to guess the X value, I want to actually solve this for X. So how would I solve this for X?
Gotta get X by itself.
Try to get X by itself, okay? So I'm going to subtract this number, 825,000, from both sides.
But wouldn't this be called being getting the inverse of the equation? Oh no, it wouldn't, because we're not replacing y and x. We're just simply filling the variable with the value.
Yes.
So it wouldn't be an inverse. Okay.
If you did find the inverse, then after you found the inverse, you'd want to plug that 659,400
This
in
is
for
skipping
X.
stuff.
You want to plug it in for X because then the meaning would switch.
Yeah.
So if you're going to plug in that number anyway, then
Must-
why
yeah.
manipulate the equation first? Why not just plug it in to start with?
I get it. I get it.
So yeah, but yeah, the inverse would work. But I don't want to do too much work. Because I don't mind doing the work, but I don't want to do too much work. And you guys just pretend that I'm not using a calculator.
I'm using a calculator.
Okay, now what's the second thing I need to do after I subtract it?
We have to divide them both by 2,300, negative 2,300.
Divide
Okay,
them
now where
both.
did you get that 65,600 at?
I subtracted up here on the left. I did 659,400 minus 825,000.
Wouldn't that be 165,000?
No, because the negative more, the negative number is higher
Well,
than the
is
positive
it?
number.
Did I miss a number here? Yeah, it is 165. I just didn't Yes, thank you.
You would figured it out when it became a really
You're just
huge
paying
number.
attention.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. Now, be careful with your negatives here. If you have negative divided by negative, it should be positive. So the answer, if I'm talking about months, then it should be positive anyway, because negative months doesn't really make sense. So 72 months is how long it would take for it to depreciate to that. Wrong.
17 months is 6.
Read the
6.
blank. 72 blank years. 72 years is not right. 72 months is
6 years.
6 years. Yes. They like trying to trick you with stuff like that because I don't know. I think they're just kind of evil.
Yeah, I was gonna say that they're evil.
I don't know why they would do that other than to try to trick you. But yes, there are problems like that, and it usually shows up in word problems where they switch the months and the years. The other thing they like to do is they like to say like such and such is the number of thousands of something, and you have to convert it to thousands or millions. Question?
I wanted to copy that copy.
You want to see that again?
Yeah.
Okay, why don't you guys look at the next couple of questions while some people are trying to copy this. You need to copy that down. So look at a couple of the other word problems and see if you can do those using the equation and not just trying to guess and check.
20 has marginal in it. Weren't you looking for one with a marginal in it? Problem 20.
Yeah, if you guys want to look at 20 and we'll take a look at the marginal questions.
Well, this one's
When
okay.
you get to this, when you divided that, did you put on a 72, did you
Just
have
need
the
one.
round there?
No, that should have been a whole number.
It says right here. Remember, you know, sold is it?
Part of mine, part of yours.
And profit fee.
Too easy. Is that what you said?
Okay.
Mine says
So
too
we
easy.
have.
They need to be shot.
We'll get some harder stuff.
Need to be shot.
Too easy is good. We'll do some harder stuff. This stuff is, honestly you guys, this stuff is stuff that you should all have seen before. Whether or not it is. This is technically high school material. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, I'm just saying it is what it is. I divided by 12 to convert months to years. 72 is months, and they don't want the answer in years.
So does this make sense? Let's try and get it wrong and get the answer. What?
No, I wanted to see what they were asking for.
So if it, let's get it wrong, find the answer, and try from again.
Hey, which one did you say says about marginal?
That's 20.
20. I don't know, I mean, you have to put it in somewhere what you're doing.
Right here. So I took that, confirm cease needs place, and put in the values.
That all of that?
Right.
Makes sense. Because look, 3,292 is the profit of 200 units. My units is X, so
So that's you
X1
have
is 200.
order pair.
Profit is 292. 392. 3,292, okay. is the profit, P, which is also viewed as X. I could rewrite this as P or
See what
Y.
I mean? So I'm gonna set mine up as
they're using P instead of the
600.
letter Y. Makes sense. That's why I said that's why I did slash Y, because it's P or Y.
75.
I have two.
Yeah, you got it.
You want to. So.
So what's that say?
Because this is number 2. This is P2. This is P1. This is X2. This is X2. No, you do that. No.
Right, so
P2 is 9,446.
You do negative 195,000 divided by a negative.
X1 is 800.
Alright, you're quizzing.
Oh, you're on the quiz.
Are you guys doing, number 20? Yeah, guys, let's look at number 20 where they talk about marginal, profit or revenue or whatnot.
What number did you say?
20. Okay, number 20 is something you want to be aware of when they start talking about the slope or the equation of the line, but they don't give you an equation. That means you're going to have to find your own slope.